Learned to play an instrument. Learned a second language. Applied to college. Applied for a loan. Started a business. Started a blog. Shared a picture. Shared a moment. Turn your wish list into a checklist with Internet Essentials from Comcast. When you're connected, you're ready for anything.
Yes! What a steal.
It doesn't get better than that.
Doesn't get better than that.
My name's Reese.
Reese Kennedy.
Today's world demands students' ability to do far more than be able to recite information. It requires them to be able to critically analyze content, to apply it across disciplines, be able to collaborate, and be creative in solving real-world problems. At Bosque, we are attempting to create those learning experiences for students every day, and I encourage you to join us in providing your child with a life-changing and challenging education.
Hello.
He could shred metal harder than any of these knuckleheads with the big beards and the tattoos.
I have heard that people criticize me, and I have to admit, I agree with them.
I think it was probably inevitable for me to make work that was about what was going on around me. I think as an artist, you really have to kind of challenge those boundaries.
I have complex regional pain syndrome type 2. I mean, after the accident, my body hurts. I just want the pain to go away.
We get an IV with our binaural.
Exposure therapy is basically introducing the individual to their memories. Virtual reality is kind of an augmented exposure experience.
We spend our time saying that music is connecting us to the world. And the most inspiring place where youth is embracing this music is in China.
Hello, I'm Ivan Weiner, Executive Director of the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience. Welcome to AFMX 2020, the virtual edition. As COVID-19 impacted so many festivals around the world, we are very fortunate and happy to be able to present an incredible program, thanks to our sponsors and our volunteers. Because of them, we're able to continue our tradition of bringing together filmmakers, musicians, students, and an entire community to share stories and collaborate into the future. This year we have 73 incredible film projects, with filmmakers doing live Q&As after their screenings. We also have our Intimate Conversation series that we'll be offering for free through Facebook Live. Please go to our website, abqfilmx.com, get your tickets for all of the events, see where you need to go for the free ones, and share with all of your friends on social media. It's going to be a week to remember. You can also make a small contribution through the ticketing pages for any of the events to the AFME Foundation. Finally, I'd like to thank our core team of staff members and volunteers who have worked so hard to bring the virtual experience to life. Kira, Ariella, Carly, Cindy, Shane, Sabrina, Barbara, Jerry, Sean, and Sam, this fest is for you. And it's for all of the volunteers who have contributed over the past 8 years of AFMX. From all of us at the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience, thank you. Now, let's fest.
Hello, my name is Carly Anderson, Intimate Conversations Coordinator at the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience. Welcome to AFMX 2020, our virtual edition. Before we continue with the program, we would like to thank our presenting sponsors: Comcast NBC Universal, the University of New Mexico's Film and Digital Arts Program, Albuquerque Film Office and Film Liaison Karen Criswell, Albuquerque the Magazine, the Baker Law Group, the City of Albuquerque Cultural Services Department, iHeartRadio, Jowska Road Productions, Law Tigers, Real Solutions Airport Meet and Greet Service, Seattle Film Summit, Sunny 505, Urban Enhancement Trust Fund, and Wells Fargo Advisor. With their support, we are able to make a positive impact on students, filmmakers, and musicians, and the entire community. For a full list of sponsors or to make a contribution, please visit our website at abqfilmx.com. And with your support, the best support is following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Find us at abqfilmx and share with your friends. Thank you for being part of the experience. Enjoy the show.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to one of my favorite conversations in the series of the Intimate Conversations at AFMX. We are really happy to have Mark Maxey, producer, director, writer, with us, and the one and only Snuffy Walden. I mean, when you talk about a music career, I don't know if anybody has accomplished television music and other forms of music on different platforms as much as you have. And the reason I wanted both of you on this conversation today, I mean, Mark, Snuffy like the back of your hand from producing the documentary Up to Snuff, which was an award winner at our festival and many other festivals around the world. We're going to talk a little bit about the documentary and what everybody can expect for distribution and the release date. And Snuffy, we're going to talk about a little bit of career and the creative process, especially over the past 7 months, since we were all faced with this thing called COVID-19. So gentlemen, welcome to the Intimate Conversation series at AFMX.
Thanks, Ivan.
Thanks.
So Mark, let's start with you. Let's dive right into Up to Snuff. Why don't you give a quick synopsis of what the documentary was about and the successes that you've seen with the documentary and where everybody can see it and when?
Sure. Yeah. Well, Up to Snuff, it's a documentary about Snuffy Walden. I had met Snuffy at a film festival, not unlike this one, and we became fast friends. And I learned more about. I knew Snuffy's work as a composer in television and in the film. That's definitely part of his story. But there's a whole other side to Snuffy that most people don't know. When he was touring in the 70s and 80s with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Shaka Khan, and Eric Burden. So we actually kind of reveal his story through the stories of people that knew him at each of these phases of his career in production. So it was a lot of fun to make. Aaron Sorkin's in it, Martin Sheen's in it, Tom Arnold's in it. And then, we have musicians like the keyboard player for The Who, or the guitar player for Toto, or the drummer for Chicago, all sharing their stories about Snuffy as well. And then Snuffy and his family, of course. So it was a lot of fun. And as much as it is about him, it's also a story about kind of redemption and him, Snuffy, choosing to kind of turn his life around. He was going down one path with the excesses of rock and roll success in the 70s, and instead chose a path of sobriety and pivoted into television. And then how his success over both sides of his career have really enabled him to start giving back to other people and elevating those around him. So it's really as much a story of redemption and resilience and perseverance as it is a story about sex, drugs, or rock and roll. So
yeah,
and love seeing this movie through Mark's eyes. There's nothing like it for me.
That's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, I absolutely loved the documentary and talk about it quite often. We've had some amazing documentaries at the festival over the past 8 years, and Up to Snuff, Nathan East for the Record, are two of the top music documentaries that we've had. And I mean, it was just so great having you guys out here. I mentioned before we went on that, it would be so nice to have you here in person. And, we're doing everything we can on our end to make it really personal for everyone and intimate, virtually. And I think we've, done a pretty good job. Mark, when can people access the documentary? And it's going to be out in December.
Yeah, so we have a distribution through Virtual Films, which we're excited about and have been working to prep the film for release. We originally thought it'd be out at the beginning of this year, and then with everything going on, it's kind of been pushed to the end of the year. So I don't have an actual date, although I believe it's in time for Christmas. The film should be available in a wide variety of places, and there'll be details about that posted on social media and website for the film, uptosnuffmovie.com, for anyone who wants to be the first to know once it drops. So
got it. We're going to do our part here in New Mexico to promote the heck out of it when it does drop. So I'm going to let everybody know. Snuffy, I mean, most of your work composing, I know that you work in studios and with other musicians a lot. I mean, what has the past 7 months been like for you during this time of COVID? I mean, working out of the house in the studio at home?
Well, I turned my writing room into a green screen production room so I could do some of the stuff. I installed a 10-foot green screen in the ceiling and lights and stuff, so I could just continue to work with the artists that I work with. I've been threatening to do a new record that I've been playing around with writing, that the producer for my very first record back in the 70s wants to kind of bookend with me.
Okay.
So I've been looking forward to doing that. I've been working songwriting, producing mostly. There's been no production, once we shut down. We were trying to bring 30-something back, and COVID killed that.
Yeah. I know a mutual friend, Timothy Busfield. I know he was really excited about that, and yeah, everything seemed to come to a crashing halt.
Yeah, it all did. It was kind of shocking, but it may still. I know Ed Marshall is still thinking about bringing it back out. It would have been 30-something with the original cast playing the grandparents, which was just, the scripts were delightful. I read the scripts, and of course the scripts didn't have masks written in, so it wouldn't have, you've had to adapt the scripts that didn't have COVID in them. And I just finished, I'm in the middle of finishing a West Wing reunion special.
Everybody's excited about that. I mean, the buzz on the internet and just, I know here in Albuquerque, a lot of people are talking about the West Wing.
Well, it's really exciting. It's based on an episode we did in the 3rd season called Hartsfield Landing, and it's all about voters' rights. And Michelle Obama and Bill Clinton and Lin-Manuel Miranda are all in it, and the fella that the star on I can't remember his name now. This Is Us, the star from that series is playing Leo, and
Okay.
otherwise all the original cast. It's Martin and Allison and Brad Whitford. It's the whole original cast.
I love it. God, I cannot wait for that to come out. And, you know, in getting back to production, I mean, tell us what your experience was like when you had to go in for a table read, I believe, recently.
Well, it's just a nightmare. I mean, I had a session to go in at Capitol, and everyone had to be tested the day before, and then everyone was again tested at the studio. So you have to have 2 tests to get in to even to do the work. And we actually, with just a 9-piece band, including me, we had to incorporate 2 of Capitol's biggest studios and take the partition between them apart to get the social distancing. So it was really interesting playing music where you couldn't see anybody. But it turned out great. And then we shot that segment live Monday and Tuesday of this past week. And it was so funny. We had to have one zone, you had to have a mask. Zone B, you had to have a mask and a test. And in zone A, you had to have a mask, a test, and a shield. And I even had a guy whose job it was to carry my shield and my mask hooked over the other thing. And he just stood there all day long, anytime I was shooting, and then he'd trot over to me and give me my mask and shield, and I'd put it on. It was like being in the king's court.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's interesting because everybody is talking about safety on sets and in studios and the like. And, you know, I'm sure that guy had his own mask on and shield and gloves and everything else, standing there holding your mask.
And there were very few people in the room when you're actually shooting. I mean, Tommy Schlamme was there, and a robotic camera, a big robotic camera, and one other camera operator. Otherwise, there was no one in the room.
That's incredible. You know, I had a conversation with a studio owner here last night, John O'Manson. He owns this really cool studio up in Santa Fe called The Kitchen Sink. And, you know, John has been in the business for a while, and we talked about, you know, him recording music and how busy he's been during the pandemic and, you know, what has changed for him. And he said it's so bizarre, you know, although you can get individual tracks and mix everything together, it's so bizarre not having, you know, that 10 to 20 people in his actual studio, you know, jamming together and recording and, you know, just being creative together. So I can only imagine on that scale with a show like The West Wing, they cover every detail of safety and do the best they can.
They cover every base. I'm doing a live stream on October 15th it's a release party is what it is, with a young girl I work with, Sarah Nimitz. She was in the movie as well. But we're doing 2 concerts so that we can connect all of Europe and Russia and all those people, and also all of the Americas. We're going to do one at noon and one at 7 o'clock, all Pacific time, so that we can get the whole world in on her album release, and then the album drops the next day. And that's going to be interesting because we're socially distancing and testing, but everybody's a little nervous about it because they haven't been through what I've just been through. So
yeah, no doubt. So are you all going to be in the same room doing this 6 feet apart?
We're actually going to be on a stage at a club we've played a couple of times. It's a nice wide stage. We're going to add an extension on the front of the stage so Sarah's socially distanced from everybody. And
yeah,
you know,
man, gosh,
whether I can play guitar wearing a mask or not is still debatable.
I think you can play the guitar, you know, I hate to say with your hands behind your back, but you can't. I mean, I recall, and I think of often, you know, when we had Des Dickerson and Mickey Free and you at Rock and Brews and Steve Ferroni.
Right.
Man, that was just such a great memory of that jam session, with the crowd, and I think just everybody had a great time. So there's no question in my mind about you playing a guitar. It can happen with a mask.
Probably get through it. I practiced a little over COVID.
Yeah, right.
I took my chops up.
So, life hasn't been normal the past 7 months. Let's talk about the creative process. Mark, you haven't stopped, with documentary filmmaking. You're still working as a filmmaker. What's it been like, the past 7 months during COVID for you?
Yeah, it's been kind of a mixed blessing. On the one hand, there's no production happening anywhere because of COVID, but because of that, people are actually much more accessible. So it's been a great period of development, working on projects or collaborating with other people on upcoming projects, putting together funding or packaging around different films, or acquiring IP. I've acquired book rights and life rights and screenplay that I love. And these are all things that now I'm developing and lining up all the resources and everything so that when production work resumes, whether it's next year or in 2022, some of these projects are going to be 2 years out, that, I have all these things already in place. So I'm surprised at how busy I've been, because you would think that with nothing going on, you'd have a lot of free time. And in fact, it's been the opposite, which has been great for me. And there's a film that had been shot before COVID that we're just wrapping up post-production on now, doing the color grading in Australia and doing the final score and sound mix in London. That'll be released by the end of this year in late November as well. So there's just a lot of work still happening, just not new production work. So.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about filmmakers and musicians this week about COVID-19 and whether they have felt pressure to create. Has there been any additional type pressure? But it sounds like you've just been trucking along business as usual, and really utilizing your time the way you should as a filmmaker. Snuffy, tell us about the creative process. Has that changed at all since March and the shutdown? Not necessarily the workload because of production's being stopped, but the creative process itself. What has changed for you in collaboration or any other thing you want to talk about?
Well, there's two things that have happened. One is the creative juices for me after a couple of months just stopped. I wasn't engaged in playing because, when I play, it's about playing with other musicians and getting lost in the music and the conversation that goes on between musicians. And for me, if I'm really playing, then I'm not thinking, I'm just being. And so that whole factor has been taken out of it. Like I said, I turned this into a green screen room where production-wise, I would, Sarah and I did a few concerts, and we did one series we just did all Beatles songs, did a concert of all Beatles songs. But the process is I would have to record them here, the tracks, record them all here, filming myself the whole time, then send all the tracks to her, where she would record herself singing and playing. And then it all goes up, and it's all green screen. Then it all goes in the computer, and it all gets combined and mixed in at that point, and then we stream it. So it's not the same process at all. It's not the process of being in a room and communicating.
Yeah.
But it's been a whole different lesson on production. We now are well versed in video production. I did find it difficult after a couple of months to be inspired to create. I've worked for so many years on deadlines, and all of a sudden deadlines go away. I mean, every episode of every television was, always, a mad dash to the finish line. And I would do sometimes 3 or 4 series, as many as 10 one year. So yeah. That loss of that target or that deadline, the wall that you're about to hit, really created for me a lack of inspiration.
And, I appreciate you sharing this, Snuffy, because there are a lot of people watching who are musicians and composers that have gone through the same thing. And, knowing that it's at every level of the industry, when it comes to experience and people on, different levels. I mean, I sorry for interrupting, but I just wanted to say it's inspiring to hear you talk about this.
Well, you have to be honest about it. And the truth was, I used that time coming to that screeching halt with COVID, forced me to look at some things internally, some of my personal values and my spiritual development, and things that I had, not to get off on a tangent, but things that I had put on the back burner because I was so busy. And all of a sudden, coming to that screeching halt, I had to take a look at some things and say, well, I really need to do some work on this. So from that level, it's been fantastic. The growth that I've been able to have, and the personal relationships I've been able to build, and the closer to my higher power and my center of what I think music comes from, has been great. Now I just need to go out and express that.
Yeah, man.
If that makes sense.
That's great. And I think as artists and creatives, everybody says when it opens up, and it's starting to, when it comes to production for film and television, that it's going to be an explosion of just these creative juices, flowing. Did you feel pressure in any way to get that inspiration back, or did you feel guilty in any way about not producing?
Yeah, I did. I felt, I went back and forth between feeling like, well, maybe I'm done. I'm 70 years old. I've had a great career. Maybe it's time to let the young guys in. But I don't feel that way, really. What I ended up doing was buying too many guitars to keep myself excited, and trying to stay at least pick up a guitar at least during the day, off and on, and just stay with my facilities, because and what the wonderful experience that I had when I got to go play with musicians in the studio, I really got lost in it, and God walked through the room, and I had two moments where I wasn't playing. I was almost seeing myself from outside of my body, and it was a remarkable experience, and I hope to have a lot more of that in being able to communicate with guys. It was a different level of depth than I've gone into in the studio before, and I think that's because of the work I did and what COVID brought forth for me. So I think I turned lemons into lemonade for me.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something, a lot of people that I've spoken to, since March, they have taken lemons and turned them into lemonade, but they did go through this process of questioning themselves and their art form. And, this has been hard on a lot of people, but, I think so many have taken their creative process and turned it around in many ways for the better, if that makes any sense.
I think it has bettered me. I believe it.
Yeah.
Not that I would ever ask to do it again.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's been a super growth process for me. Not as much on the instrument as between my ears.
I hear you. Let's talk about we're on a virtual conversation right now. Mark, what kind of creative platforms have you seen? What's the most creative thing that you have seen during COVID, people doing online?
There's sure been a lot of collaboration happening virtually, which is exciting. I mean, that's, I guess, part of the upside as well, is that in addition to people being more accessible now, they're able to collaborate in different or more meaningful ways than perhaps they would have been in the past. Some of the projects that I've been involved with that are developing now, including with a well-known musician that I met at your festival previously, where we're now collaborating on the documentary that we'll discuss it at a later conversation perhaps. But there's all these creative things happening now as a result of this pause and the space that's opened up for this creativity to happen. I know writers that are having these just epic moments of where they're just cranking out work in a way that they hadn't been able to previously, which is I'm so jealous because I'm not a writer, and I wish I were. I'm so inspired by the people who are, and so this has been a great opportunity for that. And then I was visiting recently with a gentleman who runs Preservation Hall in New Orleans, known for the Preservation Hall jazz band. But they just did a big virtual concert where they had David Grohl and Paul McCartney and all these other people coming together to do this big virtual event to help support and sustain Preservation Hall during this period of COVID while it's closed. And that group of people never would have been together on the same ticket for that purpose, were it not for the technology and this new virtual way of connecting with people and facilitating conversations and actions to help further or support a cause in which you believe. So I think in a lot of ways, technology and this climate that we're in has made it easier for people to make those connections and accomplish things that they wouldn't have otherwise, perhaps.
Yeah, is this stuff?
Oh, go ahead, Ivan.
No, I was going to ask you, Snuffy, what cool things have you seen online when it comes to collaboration between musicians?
Well, there's been a lot of obviously, one guy doing a track in his house and another guy doing a track. I was watching Lukather and they did a Toto track and they were all in their Zoom boxes, the Hollywood Squares thing. And which honestly, I feel like a door is opened that is never going to be closed again. I think that a lot of my time is spent on Zoom. I'd say 3 hours a day I'm on Zoom at a minimum. And I don't think it's something that's going to disappear. I think it's going to be basically become a hybrid now, whether it's sobriety and meetings or whether it's music. There's just a quicker way of communicating and a whole new door that's been opened that I think it will not close. My experience with it, I haven't done virtual sessions for other people, but I generally tell them, you can't afford me, so I'll do it for free. But I haven't found a lot of people coming to do those things except the artists I've worked directly with. Because you kind of got to learn a new technology. You kind of got to get, film editing, lighting, green screen work, you got to learn a new tool. But I think they'll be used indefinitely now. I can't imagine them going away.
Let me ask you this. I mean, I see people getting together for virtual happy hours, and have you jammed with any of your friends over Zoom,
It's too hard that they don't quite have the lag time down.
Gotcha.
I've heard that there's a couple of programs that almost work.
Mm-hmm.
But I know from my friends of mine who write and produce, there is a ton of collaboration going on. I have a buddy who produces John Bon Jovi and Sheryl Crow and Melissa Etheridge, and he's got a friend in London, and they're working constantly, but because of the time difference, they work on an idea. John goes to bed, and over there he's working all through the night when John's sleeping. When John gets up, he's got a new product with the guy that he's worked on, and he works on it all day, and they pass it back and forth like that. So songs are happening so fast because we're in a 24-hour work process. And I know he just wrote some songs for Rod Stewart, and they came out really fast, and they got them back to Rod, and Rod's already sung them, and that's been in the last 4 days. So
wow,
it's really, you can use it to super pace yourself.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We had Michael Davenport and Eddie Caldwell on yesterday. They're music supervisors in the industry and publishers, so they have tremendous catalogs of music and placing in shows. And they were talking about how fast things are happening in terms of hey, let's get that track to so and so to drop into their show or film or whatever it is. And I think Zoom has made, and other platforms have made, things speed up a bit in the industry in communication and getting things done. So I agree with you that it's going to be a hybrid, and based on, what happens with a COVID solution, I should say, it's going to be kind of the wave of the future, I think.
Well, for me, you know, I thought it was going fast 2 years ago. I can't imagine it speeding up much more, but
I
you know,
know.
I'm old school now. I was a young kid when I got in this business. I was the young upstart. Now I'm the old guy everybody's shooting at. So it's kind of a different position I'm in.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, not being the old guy, but you know, in the beginning of your career, there wasn't all this technology. How have you adapted to this and, you know, being thrust into, you know, Zoom and online stuff since March? I mean, what has changed for you in terms of technology and how's it affected you?
Well, I was lucky. I started doing this scoring actually right when sequencers began and small personal computers were operating back in 86, 87. And I got my start doing that. And because I didn't read music or write music and never gone to music school, it was at least give it 50% of the credit for me having any success at all, because I could actually sit down at home without all that college knowledge and put out a product that somebody liked. As it's gone faster, I just try to keep up now. I mean, you know, I work with the kids in their 20s and they throw the sentence or two at me and I go, what did you say? Do what,
Right.
where, how, when, how? But I learn, you know, I find I'm still relatively flexible up here.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's great. What I miss terribly now is the communication between artists together in a room. And there's nothing that for me can supplant that. And nothing replaces it. And it's the thing that I'm dying for. I mean, literally, I've been buying guitars just waiting for the moment where I can drag them all out to a club somewhere and sit in for 5 people in the audience. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just to have that communication and that dialogue with other musicians. That's an unspoken language that I live for. So,
to be fair, Snuffy was buying lots of guitars before COVID too.
Right.
So that's not a new thing. Come on.
Well,
that's what the addition to the house was.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Snuffy, how many guitars does a guitar player need?
One more.
One more.
Just the right one.
I love it. So
one arrived yesterday and Deb said, I think there's a guitar here. I had one stolen 4 years ago that I'd had for 40 years, and the Fender Custom Factory made me a replica of it. So it just arrived yesterday.
Oh, it's awesome.
That's beautiful. So let me ask you, excuse me, let me ask you something, Snuffy. You know, you miss being with people in a room making music. What are some of the highlights that you can think of, you know, in terms of, you know, people that you've worked with in the past and just those really memorable moments? I know that all of them are memorable when you're creating music with someone else, but, you know, what are some of the highlights for you?
Well, I remember more after I got sober. So
yeah.
I'll kind of pick it up from that place.
There you go.
I mean, listen, there were wonderful times when back in England in the 70s when I was playing with Free. I got to do Free's last record because Paul Kossoff was out of commission. I got to follow him in another band with Backstreet Crawler. I got to play on Carl Palmer and Greg Lake's solo albums. I did a world tour with ELP. You know, that's all pre-sobriety. And then after that, you know, playing, one of the most fabulous things for me was touring with Shaka. Shaka was and is a phenomenal artist with a heart the size of Texas. And I always felt so free and so completely appreciated for exactly what I did at any moment, and was given a freedom that few sidemen get, I think. And so I hold on to that. And I've loved touring with the artists I work with. I love doing, you know, what happened was in 87, I fell into the composing and I really said, you know, this is not going to last very long. So I'll take the deep dive and, you know, because it's only going to last for a few years. And that was 34 years. So I kind of got out of the performing element. I mean, before that, I got to play with Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder actually was going to be playing in this West Wing. He was going to close out the show that I opened. I'm opening this West Wing reunion with me playing an acoustic guitar version with a small orchestra of the West Wing theme. But Stevie was going to close the show. And at the last minute, it was just too many pieces to put together. And so they had to cancel that. But I was looking forward to seeing Steve again, working with him in the middle of the night doing songs in the key of life. You know, I would get calls to come down and play guitar because nobody else would take a call at 2 a.m. but me.
Yeah.
And engineer was my best friend, so I got to see Stevie a lot during that. That was remarkable. It's still, to me, one of the finest albums ever recorded.
I'll tell you, you know, it's great to be here with you and Mark. You know, there's so many dots that connect in this industry. And, you know, you mentioned Shaka Khan. It's like, I just think Eddie Caldwell yesterday, you know, publishing, he owns the rights to, I think, her music and works closely with her. You know, we had Steve Ferroni here who drummed for Shaka for a while, Nathan East bass. You know, it's just, you talk about, you know, people in the industry that you love and work with. You mentioned Stevie, and you worked with them, Greg Fillinganes, you know, and Stevie Wonder. And, you know, I think of NAMM, the last NAMM show, Nate was there, you know, with Yamaha, and Stevie walks up and they start jamming to a tune that they recorded together. You know, it's great. And I love these conversations because I think just bringing up names and experiences puts a smile on people's faces. And there's so many people that just want to smile about something right now.
Well, you know, Ferroni's a good friend of mine, and we talk all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Steve
I speak to him a couple of times a week, and not only a world-class drummer, but a lovely man.
He really is, you know, and I just have such fond memories. And, you know, I think, you know, Mark making this documentary, you both coming out to the festival and being a part of it, you know, has really impacted me, and I think this community a great deal. So I just wanted to share that.
Do it again.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again. We'll have an all-star concert with all the musicians that have been out here to the festival in the past. So that could
Do I have to have a movie? Can I come with one of Mark's other movies? Maybe
you can come with one of his movies
or something.
You know, I'll tell you something. Mark can produce, which he never would, a shitty movie, and I'd still play it at the festival. I love this guy so much.
Well, I'll say, Ivan, with Up to Snuff, we were fortunate to be in 60 festivals over the course of our 2-year run there, and there were a lot of them were just a blur. But having experienced so many different festivals over that period, hats off to you on what you're doing with AFMX, because that was a standout festival, which is why now I've come back. I mean, I was back last year. I'd be there right now if you were having an in-person festival. The community you've built and the work that you all do, and the amazing team of people that you surrounded yourself with there that make the festival happen. Just hats off to you, because that's a phenomenal.
And I made some dear friends there too. You, Ivan, Martha. I mean, people were so warm and so open. You do something really special there. Don't let that slide.
I appreciate it, guys. I started my career in the hotel industry as a concierge, and it's always about I think exceeding expectations, don't overpromise and underdeliver, and make somebody smile and get them what they want quickly. So the team that we've had, we've been able to assemble a team of people that know how to care for other people and have a genuine interest in other people. And I'm fortunate to have a team under me. I call myself the lead volunteer. And, the team I have under me is so incredible that, it's a pleasure to work side by side with everybody. And, I appreciate the compliment. I really do. I take seriously relationships. I think, everybody on my team that I've talked to and people that I've been on these conversations with, it's all about relationships that you build in life, and you have to cherish those, during the good times and bad. I mean, that's what gets you through life in a really amazing way. So
it's always the people.
Yeah. And, I think you two have built such a friendship. You're like brothers, and it's so cool to see. And when we're able to have people involved with our festival, like the two of you, it's more than just, oh yeah, let's get them on and talk about music and filming documentaries. It's kind of like life lessons for people, and we want to talk about fun stuff, challenging stuff, and give the audience something that they can learn from. And during these times, it's really important, once again, to have some cool stuff to talk about that's going to make people smile.
If not careful, Mark and I'll start talking about his boys and his mom, and
yeah,
we'll just have a conversation like we normally do.
Yeah, let me jump into some of what your hopes for the future are. Yes, we're at stay-at-home orders. You can go with masks and everything else. What's your hope for the future when it comes to getting through this with a vaccine? Hopefully, that works. I mean, I personally want to see all the people on Capitol Hill take the vaccine first, and the White House let them take it first and see if it works out, and then and then
okay.
Yeah, and then see if it's okay for everybody else to take. I don't want to get into politics here by any means. I think everybody's doing the best they can, but what's your hope for the future? Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the new normal will look like on the other side of this, but I absolutely believe that we'll get to the other side of this. And I hope, I look forward to the return of kind of civility and normalcy. It seems like we're so divided and isolated, and it's just it's a different world now than it was, and I look forward to being on the other side of that, and being able to collaborate with people again, be able to see live music again. I'm not a musician, but I love music, which is why I love Snuffy's story and Nathan's story and stories like that. And I miss live music. I miss Broadway. I miss artists being able to do what they do and share that with audiences en masse. So that's what I'm hopeful for. It's just that we get to the other side of this and people are still around, and the artists that I love are still able to get back up on that horse and do what they do again. So yeah,
you said a key word there, civility. I mean, be civil towards one another. That's everyone's hope. Yep.
Yeah, we don't have to agree. We just need to remember that we're all in this together. So
absolutely,
we don't have to be disagreeable, right?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I look at this in a different way, Ivan. What I'm hoping to see is that, and there again, I can only see it through the lens that I've experienced this last 7 months.
Yep.
But I hope to see people with personal growth, bringing that growth out into the community and out into the musical community, and in a burst of expression and love and appreciation for what we have. It's been taken away so abruptly, that's what I found, is that it's really increased my appreciation of where we were sitting a year ago, even where we were and the freedoms we had and the abilities we had to communicate. And for me personally, I found a richer connection to my source. And I really hope as a community, musicians and filmmakers, et cetera, although I'm more involved in the musician front, I just hope we find that deeper expression and bring it out and share with each other. I think if I had a wish, that would be it.
Yeah. Amen. I just want to, on a side note, just let viewers know you can ask questions. Just type it into the chat, and we'll get the questions as many as we can from Mark and Snuffy. One just came in. Let's see, from Peggy Markle. What's your advice to young artists and creatives during this incredible time? We're all longing for the exchange of creative collaboration to return.
Is that for me or Mark?
For Snuffy.
Oh, wow. I think for me, it's a matter of keeping your chops together enough so that you can express whatever it is you're finding in yourself. Getting cut off like this has caused a real yearning for me and I don't want to say the past, not like the 50s, although the appearance of the 50s sounds good to me, but I've really, it's so in the front of my mind how I just can't go down to the corner with a pedal board and a guitar and have a creative conversation with friends of mine in some club that serves pizza and bad beer. It's like the freedom of that. I just hope that we fully grasp and embrace that. And all I could say to you is, I have friends who, Zane Carney, good friend of mine, great guitar player, has found this incredible outlet. He performs every day, and I'm amazed about that. I've got other things in my life that take some of my attention. I would say, look deeply, find your voice, and be prepared to express that in a magnificent way once we get out of this. I don't know if that's much of an answer.
No, that's a great answer. And yeah, I want to shoot over to Mark, and what's your advice to young documentarians out there? I see you as a very successful documentary filmmaker, and you have your stuff together, the process from beginning to end. What's your advice for this time?
Yeah, well, I mean, just do it. I mean, for film, whether you're a filmmaker, a musician, or whatever your passion is. I have two sons. I tell my sons, follow the fun, right? Regardless of the circumstances, you just follow the fun and keep doing what you're passionate about. And that certainly applies for me with filmmaking. As I said earlier, I'm as busy now as I was before, busy in a different way perhaps, but still focused on finding compelling stories that I want to share, or lining up things for what's going to come next. You can absolutely, or finishing post-production, something that was already in the works. At whatever stage you are in the process, in the creative process, to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and moving forward, and that's how things get done. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Mark, let me ask you this. You work, I know that you work. What do you do for fun? What do you do outside of work?
Fun? What's that?
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you, part of the silver lining, both my sons are in college, and now with COVID, one of them is back home because his school has closed their campus. And so, I mean, we still do family game nights in my house. I mean, we play Clue or Yahtzee or Crazy Eights or cards or whatever. I mean, it's going for walks with my wife, trying to be outdoors when we can, and then do things together as a family when we can. For me, that's great. If in a different time, I'd be at concerts, I'd be at plays or shows or traveling. But in the absence of all those things, we've just kind of looked within for the fun, and it's actually been a real blessing to have this extra time, because we went from being empty nesters, where it's just my wife and I, now to having both boys home for a while, and now one son still with us for a bit. And we're grateful for that extra time. It feels like bonus time that we weren't supposed to have.
Yeah.
So we're really cherishing that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I have two boys, and we're not empty nesters, but it's been really great being able to spend the time with the kids and having them around and including them in a lot that I'm doing. Like my older son is 14, and he's become a volunteer for the festival, and he has built so many great relationships with the fellow volunteers. I mean, he has learned a lot from them, and not just about volunteering in the operation of the festival, some life lessons that he needs to build those relationships with other older people, and they just treat him like family. It's great. Snuffy, what about you? What do you do for fun outside of composing and playing?
Well, I used to surf a lot, but after two total knee replacements, I kind of cut back on that. One of the things that's been great about this COVID is my older son has come home and moved home from Austin, where he lived for 2 or 3 years, and he moved back, and his idea was, well, I'll just quarantine at your house and then we'll go find an apartment. Well, that was 3 months ago. And they've taken over the downstairs level of the house that has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom and a family room with a big screen TV. And he and his girlfriend are there, and my other son is over all the time. They've started a business in the meantime while my older son tours with a band called Griffin and did Coachella and Lollapalooza and all that stuff last year. And then this year it all came to a screeching halt. So, you know, they started a business together. They've been around all the time. There's always kids coming over, socially correct, out by the pool. And, you know, the fun for me has been having the heart of the family together.
Yeah.
I don't go out much because I'm in that bad group of over 70. And, but I find great joy in what they bring to the party, you know. My wife still rides horses. She does all the things she used to do. I wouldn't go out to a barn, but she wears a mask and rides her horses and just loves it. So, you know, we found it's more condensed time. I spend a lot of time in thought and meditation. I mean, I really do. I've spent a lot of my time as a personal search. But as far as fun, and that can be fun too, you know, that's not just worry.
Absolutely.
Some spiritual growth has really been great for me, and having my kids around, because, you know, at some point they're all going to do what my first son did and move and disappear from our lives. And it enriches me to have them here. And I'm blessed that my son hasn't just moved out. You know, if he was touring, he'd be gone all the time. So
yeah, I thank you for that and sharing that, because I think everyone that I have spoken to, you know, whether it's on these conversations for the festival or other people in the industry that, you know, have very busy schedules. You know, I mean, Nathan East, Giancarlo Esposito, you know, other people that have been on earlier this week. You know, the one thing that everybody has appreciated is that time with the family. You know, Snuffy, you're a composer in television. You're one of the busiest musicians and composers that I know. It kind of slows you down a bit where you do spend the time with the family, and to have the kids home, it really is a blessing. It's more work at times if they're in school and younger, but
you've got
it's definitely a blessing. Yeah. Have another question from an audience member. Mark Fabios says he just retired from teaching music, and he's trying to break into film and television as a composer or in some facet of production. Do you have advice for making demos in terms of format, style, and marketing?
Well, you know, what I tell people when they come to me, you know, I came at this from a totally different point of view. I didn't even really know it was a job when I started doing it. And I had to learn it on the job. But, you know, what I've said to people all along and what I help them with is, if you want to write music for film, then you need to get up and make a point of writing to film every day. Because what happens is you write a lot of music, but it's not to film. It's a totally different muscle. It's a totally different muscle. You can be Stravinsky and know how to write anything, and yet faced with film, it's a totally different procedure, because what you're doing is the film is the lead and you're enhancing that. It's more like being a guitar player in a band and where you just play color, you know. So I would strongly suggest any way you can to get materials, and I'm always happy to be a service. They can go through you, Ivan, and get to me. I'm happy to be a service. Get some film where the music is stripped out of it and write to picture, and make it a what's the word I'm looking for? Make it make a diligent effort to every day say, I'm going to sit down for a half hour, even if nothing happens, and play music to film. And to me, that's the reason I was able to put out the volume of work I did, because I was so busy writing cues, I got comfortable and could slowly trust my first instincts. And that was the only reason the year I was doing 10 shows I was able to do them, because I'd gotten to the point, I'd done it so much that I trusted my instincts. I'd made all the mistakes. So that's what I suggest. to anyone who wants to write to film, get up and write to film every day.
That's great advice. Let me ask you this, Snuffy. You know, music, you were a touring musician, composer for television and film, you know, one of the greatest. Who are some of your influences, you know, when it comes to composition?
You know who really stood out to me early on was Ry Cooder. Just the minimalistic touch and soulfulness of his performances, because he performed all his scores, which I did in the beginning. It was only much later when I had to branch out into so many different styles that I went to Dean Parks and George Deering to play guitar for me, and still played the stuff that I do for me. Tommy Newman, another phenomenal composer and a friend. Randy Newman. I mean, the Newman family all the way around is kind of hard to beat. Yeah. John Williams, and I love John, and he's always been gracious to me, but he goes so far over my head in his ability. You know, and here's a man who, at 84 years old, still writes 4 bars of music completely orchestrated every day, whether the sun shines or whether he's in the hospital or whatever. He writes every day, fully orchestrated score, at least 4 bars. It's just his way of being.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and the people like that are just beyond me. And Tommy has this incredible ability to be totally transparent in the film while all this drama is going on. And if you listen just to the track, you go, well, that's not saying anything about the drama, but he's so totally transparent and allows the film to speak through him and through the music, that the music supports whatever is happening on the screen. And it's a phenomenal talent he has.
Mark, yeah, I mean, Mark, you produce and direct and, you know, documentaries and projects that you work on. Yeah, who are some of your influences? What movies, what films, what's the 2 or 3 movies that you said, man, that impacted me and I want to make movies?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that there was that light bulb moment for me. I'm kind of a lifelong learner. I just love new challenges. Yeah. I love things that are creative. You know, at one point I played violin, I played guitar, I played piano, all of them badly, you know, but I just loved, you know, trying to branch out in different ways musically, and then had an opportunity to get into production and post-production, and you know, just working television and film, and it's been just a continual, you know, love of learning new things. And even now within film itself, you know, I've primarily done documentaries, and now I'm pivoting and doing more scripted narrative features, which is a whole different type of exercise. It's very different than taking a small crew out to tell, you know, one story. Now you're dealing with things on a much larger scale, which I'm enjoying. So for me, it's not really one person or one film, but just more a lifelong interest in pushing myself to do new things, and always creative. I mean, that's the other thing for me. I'm one that always, you know, whether it's music or television or film or art, whatever it is, I love the creative process, and want that to be part of my day and my life. The other thing I found is that if you surround yourself with incredibly talented people that are more talented than I am, you know, that's the best way to succeed and be happy. I like to say that if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I'm in the wrong room, because I should never be the smartest. Yeah. So
I'm with you.
Yeah, and all these things that I'm involved with are very collaborative things, right? I'm not a solitary person working, you know, alone. I'm working with amazing, you know, directors and DPs and ADs, and you know, I mean, the whole crew that comes together to make a film or tell a story. I love that collaborative approach to creativity or art. So.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me asking, can you give any hint on what kind of feature you're working on, or what's it about?
I'm doing my first foreign language film with this incredible director from Thailand, Nippon, who is just a genius. His mind, the things that he sees, and what he's able to get out of people on film is just phenomenal. He's done a bunch of shorts. This is his first feature that he's directing, and I'm so pleased to be producing it with him. And that's the film that we're nearing the end of post-production. It should be released in Asia at the end of November. The theaters in Thailand are open, and Major Cineplex is, the largest theater chain there in Thailand. So this will be in Major Cineplex theaters towards the end of this year. Very excited about that. And then there's a bunch of other projects that are English, but that I'm developing that I'm excited about. That I'll be glad to talk more about in a later date. So
Who'd you get to score the one in Asia?
Yeah, I tell you. So part of this guy's genius, where the scores, the final mix is being done over in the UK, but this director actually wrote the majority of the music that's in the picture. He's just one of these creative geniuses where he knows exactly what he wants at every step. I'll give you just a quick example of his brilliance. Years ago, when he was in his 20s, he did a short film that he made for about $30. But it's set in outer space. And he is he was so brilliant. So everyone, and he filmed it with his friends and family in his house, just using a green screen in the living room or the dining room, wherever they were. And he did things like he put a hat on the string and had it twirl slowly, and a wrench or a flashlight. And then he'd composite all these things together and build this whole visual effects map that now it looks like you're in outer space in the spaceship and these things are floating around you. And when he puts this all, and then when these people are acting just sitting in a chair in the dining room behind a green screen, but he's able to get them to see outside of that reality into what he's going to build around them virtually. And so it's a really heartfelt, emotional, short film, but it played at the Cannes Film Festival, this $30 film by this, kid in Thailand ended up playing at Cannes. So he's just a brilliant filmmaker, and I'm just so excited to help share his first feature with the world. It's called Soul Prison. That's the English name for the film. I can't pronounce the Thai equivalent, but Soul Prison. It'll be available in Asia this winter, and hopefully in the rest of the world in 2021 next year. And
you give a really talented person a guitar with one string, and they'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
That's
it's
right.
Same thing like Django. He lost half his hand, but could still just, if the talent's there, it'll come out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for all the producers that are out there watching this, look at Mark, and when he just started talking about the excitement he had about that project, I just pepped up a little bit. Like, that's the way people should be in the industry when they're talking about what they love doing. It's great.
Follow the fun.
Don't do it for the money.
yeah, I hear you. So I have another question from the audience, from Kira Seipler. She's an incredible director and film industry professional. As a film director, any suggestions on how to collaborate and quote unquote speak with the composer on a project to achieve the finished project?
Mark, you want that?
No, that's you. You're the composer.
That's for me,
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, how do you want directors talking to you, Snuffy? How do they speak to you? What's the best approach?
The ones that have the reason I love notes, although I don't like notes, but I love them from a person who really understands the material, is they speak to me in emotions. They don't speak to me about what the music should be doing there and how it should be moving, but they talk to me about the story and what they felt like they missed a little bit of inside it. And they talk to me in emotions. Sometimes when a guy goes, and right here, I want the oboe to enter, and then a pick, because I'm not that kind of composer, it doesn't speak to me. But when somebody says, I just feel there was this light moment and I didn't get it out of the performance, or the really good directors, Tommy Schlamme, Ed Zwick, Marshall Herskovitz, would talk to me in terms of an arc of a script as opposed to the arc of a scene and the arc of an episode. And they would tell me, number one, what they were trying to get out of their film and what they felt was lacking. And number two, they would talk about what they wanted the end effect to be, and that is a guiding light to me. It's a beacon. It tells me so much more in depth about what I didn't see in the script and what I'm not seeing in the film, and it allows me to try to explore those areas to bring them out. And you know, most of the time a director just wants you to make him like his movie better, you know, and they have specific choices and specific ideas, and you know, I think you always have to listen to that and then try to surprise them. Be prepared to redo it.
I mean, there's a great line. Steven Spielberg once said that as a director, he can bring a tear to someone's eye, but it's John Williams' music that makes the tear fall. And that's exactly what Snuffy's talking about. It's that emotion. Aaron Sorkin said that about Snuffy. The first time I met Aaron Sorkin, when I mentioned that I was friends with Snuffy, he lit up and started talking about how, as a writer, he's creating these two-dimensional characters and scenes on paper, but it's Snuffy's music that breathes life and emotion into those things that he writes, and that's such an important collaboration between the director and the composer, and it's absolutely about the emotion of the scene.
It was such a sweet moment when we were doing this West Wing thing, and I got a small orchestra and a 9-piece orchestra with me at Capitol Studios, and we used Studio A and Studio B, and we'd run it down once, and it was feeling okay, and Tommy and Aaron both Zoom called in, and they brought an iPad out to me, so the three of us are on camera, and I said, well, okay, here it goes. And Aaron was so afraid that it wasn't going to be, you know, forward enough, and afraid it was going to be a little too, what was the word he used? Melancholy. And it starts off with a guitar, and we played it. And I looked down at one point, and Aaron had tears again. And they had no notes. It was so great to be able to do that, because the only time I saw it was when I played the main title for him the first time with an orchestra. So, you know, to be able to do that and to be able to touch your filmmaker in that way is remarkably fulfilling for a composer. I mean,
yeah, I mean, my strongest opinion is a film or a television show is nothing without the music. You know, the music.
You're not supposed to notice us either.
Right.
We're supposed to support the drama, not be the feature.
Yeah, but I mean, what you've been able to create and other top composers around the world, I think, it's a character in the show or the movie. I mean, the music is certainly a character in it. And yeah, the emotion that you've brought to things in your career for, you know, whether it's 30 something or the Wonder Years, you know, the West Wing, of course, yeah, it's just second to none. And, you know, Aaron probably had a tear in his eye because, you know, he was thinking back to when you first introduced that music for the song, for the show. And, you know, it's that impactful. You make people cry. It's a character that touches people emotionally. It's a gift. It's a gift.
Hopefully it is. I won't name any names, but I once had a producer or director call me up and say, "You call this music?" So I've had both experiences. As it turned out, we ended up using that music 15 times in the series we were doing.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but
I won't ask.
but that was one response I got that was like, whoa, well, yeah, I think it's music. Let me go listen to it.
Right. So we have about 10 minutes left. You know, let's talk about some of your favorite music that you've composed, Snuffy. I mean, you know, I know you love most things and almost everything that you've done, but what really stood out to you, you know, as an emotional piece for you, whether it's a TV show or film?
You know, I think the first two things that come to mind are the theme for 30 something and the theme for the West Wing, primarily because those two pieces have touched people in an interesting way, in a different kind of way. 30 something because I think it was such a new kind of show. It was such a fresh take on television. and it was a guitar player just performing rather than musicians playing written out music. And the West Wing has probably touched more people than any. The themes of the West Wing has probably touched more people than anything I've ever written. And there's something about it. You know, I was there when it came out. It was actually a cue for the end of episode 3, and it was written in 10 minutes. And you know, there was no thought put into what it was doing and why. It just came through me. And so I really can't take credit for it, but it has touched so many people. I get letters all the time about people who rewatch the series and they will never fast forward through the opening credit.
Well,
And
and we see that in screenings of other stuff. I mean, we have Aaron and Martin and people talking about the music, and then we go into the main title of The West Wing, and sitting at the back of the theater for screenings at festivals. The audience reacts to that music. Sometimes it's an audible reaction. In other cases, they're just drawn in. People, that theme elicits something in people. The people that love that show anyway. And beyond that, another great example of that is Lin-Manuel Miranda for his final curtain call on Broadway at Hamilton when he was stepping away from the show. And such an incredible, talented person that he is, and what an amazing show that was. For his final bow on Broadway, the pit orchestra for Hamilton started playing Snuffy's theme to the West Wing for Lynn's final curtain call. So his final bow wasn't to anything he wrote for the show, but was something that Snuffy wrote for this television series, which just, I think, speaks volumes to just how it transcends that program and has become part of things that people really connect with in a real and emotional way.
And I think now people look to the West Wing as a we wish, I think there's a part of what the West Wing was that Aaron created that we long for in our politics today. A civility, a thoughtfulness,
and honesty,
righteousness, if you like.
Yeah, well put.
I think I know it affected a lot of people. I had the vice president of Disney the other day called me because for his wife and he had been binge watching the West Wing, and he wanted something from me because she had done all this deep dive on me. So I got the West Wing score printed out by hand and signed it to her and sent it to her, and was there on her anniversary when she got it, was on Zoom when she got it. And these are, I see it in people, normal people who just respond to that piece of music. And I was lucky to be there when it got written, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? I think the world was lucky as well, Snuffy. So thank you. Yeah. Any closing thoughts, guys? About just music, life, producing. I feel like this is a really special conversation, at least for me. You had to put up with me for about an hour and a half.
I mean, I think music and the arts are so important. You hear a lot about STEM, and yet I hear, I think it should be in terms of education in schools, right, with science, technology, and whatnot. And I think it should be STEAM, because the arts should be part of that conversation. And there's a great, cute little meme or poster or something about Earth without art is just And
that's
I think
right.
that's so true. If you take the art out of Earth, what's the point? So I just think, whatever your art is, in whatever medium that takes, whether you create it or just consume it, it's such an important part of what makes the world a beautiful place and life worth living. So I applaud Snuffy and the people who create that art that I consume and enjoy, and I'm grateful for the opportunity in a small way to help shine a light on Snuffy's story through this film, and can't wait to see what's next. So
the one thing I would say to people, that the thing that I've learned throughout this process, especially in whether it was back in my early 20s or whether it's been since I got sober, is to make a discipline out of what you love, so it's always there and you can always keep it fresh. And that's what I've tried to do over the last, oh gosh, how many years? I don't know, 55 years since I've been in the business professionally. And always find, whether it's a new discipline or not, something that I make it a point to do every day, and that keeps the juices flowing. It keeps the music flowing for me.
Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out on a Saturday afternoon to be part of AFMX 2020.
Well, it's not like we got to go to a picnic.
I know, right? But I'll tell you, I can't wait for that day that we can go on a picnic, and
yeah, let's
I
do it in
can't wait.
Albuquerque.
I'm sorry.
Let's do it in Albuquerque.
Absolutely. Would love to have both of you back. As our, you're part of the family now, so we just love both of you, and really really appreciate everything that you bring to the world, and to everyone around you. Up to Snuff, the documentary, keep an eye out for its release date this year. You will want to see this documentary. I've seen, like I said in the beginning, I've seen a ton of documentaries. This is one of my favorites. It's such an amazing story. So
all that credit goes to Mark Maxey, my dear friend.
It's the subject of the film. I had such an amazing subject. This was such a joy to do. So thank you, Snuff. Thank you, Ivan.
Yeah, thank you both. And once again, we have a great day of movies and films. Tune into abqfilmx.com to check out the schedule. We have a great Native American block coming up later today, and really cool feature film tonight called Lemonheads that you won't want to miss. So check it out, abqfilmx.com. Go to our Facebook page and share with everyone you know. And I think we're over and out. We're gonna hang out afterwards to talk for a few minutes. But once again, guys, thanks again, Snuffy Walden, Mark Maxey.